Welcome to Small Talk. My name is David Shaw. I've never been so conscious of the command by Jesus to love our neighbour as ourselves as I have over the last 16 months. What that's looked like in practice has been fairly fluid. For some of us, it has meant staying at home, not having contact with anybody else except by phone or at a distance when we've clapped the NHS or via the internet. It may have meant for some looking out for the vulnerable people who live nearby. For the NHS staff, loving their neighbour has meant in some cases sacrificing quality family time, separating themselves away from those that they have loved. But what does this loving our neighbour look like as we anticipate post July the 19th, when the lockdown restrictions will be eased? Interestingly, at least to me, and surprisingly to me, I'm drawn to a passage in Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 8, when Paul is talking about food offered to idols. Now, on the surface of it, as you hear what I've just said, and as you read it, you think this is something that is only relevant to the time in which Paul was writing, and has no contemporary value at all. But when you look at that story in the Message, you see that it actually has got something to say. So, in the Message it says something about freedom used carelessly. And elsewhere, vulnerable ones are put at risk when freedom is flaunted. Freedom is something that is given to individuals, but always in the context of community. Freedom is given to individuals, but never intended only for the individual. It is intended for the common good. And Paul was saying to those Corinthian Christians, the choices you make impact on others. And that when you make your choices, you need to be conscious of those in the community who are vulnerable. So, on July the 19th, social distancing may end. But what happens if by not socially distancing you're discomforting somebody in your community, somebody in your church, somebody who lives down the road, somebody you might meet in the shops? Mask wearing will be voluntary, and you may feel mask wearing is an utter nuisance and the sooner we get rid of it the better. But what if the people who would come to event now no longer will come to something because the rest of us have stopped wearing masks? And then I started to wonder, well, if that's true for those of us who feel confident and okay, why don't the vulnerable ones just suck it up? Why is it always those who are confident that have to give way? Paul's letter to the Corinthians make it clear where responsibility lies. This isn't a reciprocal thing, that those who feel vulnerable when non-mask wearers and non-social distancers come into their space. So far, loving our neighbour, I've talked about something that is quite parochial. But in T.S. Colvin's hymn based on a song from North Ghana, he says, neighbours are nearby and far away. Loving our neighbour should result in generous, even extravagant vaccine sharing. When the G7 met, they made what on the surface of it seemed like generous contributions of offering vaccine to the developing world. Afterwards, former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, and former Prime Minister Gordon Brown described those offers as woefully inadequate to meet the needs of the developing world. Where will the political will come from to love our neighbour in that way come from? It will come from when ordinary people encourage, put pressure on, demand that it should happen, and pray for it too.